My daughter Sarah was born at 23 weeks, 6 days, and had an awesome start to her course in the NICU, was advancing, doing everything we wanted her to do. We felt like we were out of a danger zone, and then when she was 59 days old, she was diagnosed with necrotizing, and she died within 12 hours of being diagnosed. So after that happening, I wanted to learn more about NEC. I wanted to do something about this disease, and I found that there really weren't any nonprofits or anything at the time, at least nationally, working on NEC, and I was able to find Jen, who had just months before launched this organization called NEC Society. So I joined forces with her. This has been 9 or 10 years ago. We've been working together ever since, and this NEC Symposium is something the NEC Society does that is sort of central to all of our work as far as building a community that cares about necrotizing enterocolitis, no matter what kind of stakeholder you are, might be clinician or researcher, patient family, even industry, regulatory folks. And so I'm just here because I love getting everybody together in the room that cares about babies and families and wants to end this disease. So I'm here for that reason. I do this work in honor of my daughter, but also for every other family that's impacted. So I'm thrilled to be here. I think sharing my story is can be motivational. It humanizes the disease. It helps us all remember why it's so urgent and important to make progress.
What was your daughter's name?
Her name is Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Absolutely. I was so moved by your story of Sarah just before this last breakout session. And thank you for sharing, Sarah, with all of us. I totally agree. We've talked a lot about storytelling today with some of our other interviews and how powerful they can be. One, as you said, as a motivator, right, to doing the work, so much of which is being presented in the next few days, but also for us to try to start to understand what this diagnosis means for families and how we can better support families. And I think you described it beautifully, painfully so, but you said you asked the team, why did this happen? Why our baby? Why us? And gosh, we still don't have some of those answers.
Right. Families are desperate for understanding, even years after their baby's NICU course, whether they are bereaved or have a survivor. Families are just desperate for answers. What is this disease? Almost to a person, families have not heard about necrotizing enterocolitis until it happens to their baby. People feel isolated. To have this horrible disease happen to you, but no one's ever heard of it. It's so confusing. There's a barrage. There's actually a lot of information out there about it, some of it accurate and much of it not. Absolutely overwhelming to families. And usually we're trying to figure it out during this time of crisis. Families are absolutely overwhelmed. So that's one of the challenges that we face as families. But I think you mentioned our stories being motivating, and that's part of it. And you mentioned really understanding the patient-family experience better. But I think there's also something that comes out of these collaboratory efforts when we all get together, is that patient families have a unique point of view. And I have seen it spur research projects, new initiatives. When we work in our silos, it's easy to keep going down that same path. But when patient families say, no, this is actually what matters to me, or this is something that needs to be better understood, I have seen it spark new work that I think wouldn't have happened if we weren't having those conversations. So I think the more voices in the room, the more innovative we'll be. And so that's another reason it's just so important to have families who've been affected here.
What a critical idea. I actually think we had a division meeting recently, and I think Ben said this, when we can partner with families as equal members of the care team, might we not pick up on the changes in their baby sooner? There are so many things that the parent and the family bring to the bedside that no other member of the care team can do.
I always say that the family is the most critical member of the care team, and there's many folks that are participating in care, but first and foremost, it's the parents. And we have so many families who've said to me, I just felt like something was off. I just noticed that I knew my baby just wasn't quite right. Sometimes it's listened to, sometimes it's not. And especially when it's not, and then a baby goes on to have a significant issue, families feel like, why didn't anybody listen to me? I tried to bring this up. So I think that the removing the hierarchies in the NICU is so important, and helping families to understand that not only are they welcome there, they are crucial and central to the care, and that they are such a key component in the baby's care team, that they have a right to be at rounds. They have a right to ask questions. We want them to participate fully, or as fully as they can, in their baby's care. Not just for them, but it's better for everyone. It's better for the baby. And families really often pick up on those early signs earlier than anybody else would. So at the NEC Society, we are all about empowering patient families to be there, to be central to the care, to not feel intimidated, and know that they are needed, that they are critical as part of the care team. And I also just want to say we're really grateful to clinicians who are open to that idea and welcoming. We have met many clinicians who are, and I feel like things are changing, that there is a cultural shift that is happening within NICUs, embracing family-centered care and understanding the important role of the parent. So I think we're getting there.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point, because losing for me, losing a patient in the NICU rarely happens knowingly. Like, you rarely know that something bad is happening and you're just not doing anything about it, and you're just letting things escalate. And so because things happen when you feel like you are in the dark, having any form of voice or hand on your arm that can be like, hey, you need to pause for a second and just reassess, look at this again. This is something that is not just welcome, but desired. Because if for every patient that I've lost in the NICU, somebody could have told me, hey, man, you need to think about this baby one more time before you move on, I would have paid millions of dollars to actually get that input.
And most families, many families are there day in, day out, seeing these things. Sometimes they don't feel empowered enough to even bring it up. And maybe you wish they would share, but they maybe don't know that they can share, or, who am I to speak up? So we want families to know that it's helpful to everyone, and that clinicians want their feedback and input too, that it really is a team effort.
In the beginning of this conversation, you said that you are here at the NEC Symposium because you wanted people to care. I feel like if I was in the car, I would be saying out loud, like, I care. So what do you mean by that?
Well, I think everybody cares about babies. When we tell our stories, I think people care. People don't know. I think not enough people know about necrotizing enterocolitis. I think those who do know care. I've never met anyone who has heard about this disease, heard about the impact on our babies and our families, and didn't care. I think that the challenge is getting these stories to a broader audience that maybe isn't in the NICU, not involved in research, and because everybody cares once they hear it. But the issue is getting the word out. And I'm especially interested in getting the word out to people who have funding power, people at regulatory agencies who can help move along clinical trials and drug development. I think those are the people that I really want to care. I want them to understand that this is an urgent problem. Hundreds of babies are dying in the U.S. every year from this disease. Thousands are affected. I want the people that can help us get the science off the bench and into the clinical setting. Those are the people I want to care. So I hope we can get their ears.
I think it's interesting because we were just talking to Mark Del Monte about this, and if you're looking at the number of babies that are affected by NEC in the NICU, it's a relatively small number. But what we tend to forget is that all the babies that have suffered from NEC, all the babies that have survived, those that have passed, are sort of standing and bearing witness to what are we doing about this. And this number, until the goals of the next society are achieved, which are to build a world without NEC, they sort of stand and watch over us, asking when is this going to go away. And I think that no matter what the statistics look like at a given time in the NICU, the number of babies continues to mount, and that is the pressure that we should all be feeling towards getting to our goal. So I appreciate you saying that.
Sometimes we wonder how parents can be so courageous to come tell their stories. And certainly throughout the course of the next few days, lots of families are coming to tell their stories. And there are a number of reasons why maybe families aren't able to or aren't willing to do that. And I guess part of my question is you told us a little bit about what motivates you to do it, but how do you actually do it? And the second is, we don't often get the opportunity to talk to bereaved parents. And I'd like to hear about how we can better support bereaved parents, especially since the NICU is kind of this isolated place and they go home and we do some bereavement follow-up, but it never seems like enough given the magnitude of the loss.
Okay. Both great questions. I'll start with how parents like myself can do this. All I can say is for me is I'm compelled to do it. I don't feel like I really have a choice in the matter. Everybody's different. Everyone deals with trauma, grief in their own way, but I know most of my colleagues at the NEC Society have a similar experience where what we went through, we can't imagine allowing that to happen to other babies and families without doing everything in our power to stop it. We can also do this work in honor of our children, whether we are bereaved or have a survivor, so that's very motivating. And I think that the way that we can do it and stay standing is in solidarity. The NEC Society has hundreds and thousands of patient families that lean on each other and support each other. I couldn't do it if it was just me, but it's not me. It's me and all of my colleagues who have been through it. And so I think that there's power in us coming together, and we're able to do it because we lean on each other, support each other. So that's key. Also finding clinicians and researchers who understand our vision and support us. We can do it because we have these esteemed scientists and clinicians who also think that we can do it. And so it's very validating to have them standing with us. So I think the way that we can do it is together, and that we really couldn't if we didn't have each other. So that was the first question. And then bereavement, difficult to address because the fact is nothing can make it better. Some things can make it worse, though, And so I think if we can do whatever possible not to make things worse. And so for me, that's things like simply being human. We had a great bereavement team when we lost our daughter, Sarah, but most of the care team who had been caring for us to that point was not associated whatsoever. We were handed off to a bereavement team. They helped us get through the things we had to get through, and I didn't see any of our other caregivers very much after that point. And I love our caregivers. We got great care. But it's hard when a baby dies, and I understand that people may not want to, they feel like they don't want to infringe or interrupt or bother us, but I wanted the people who had cared for her while she was alive to also be there and help us care for her after she died. So I wish we would have had more of the care team that we dealt with for months be part of that bereavement process and not just someone coming in from outside as the bereavement person. It would have made me feel like the care team saw her as a person and had a relationship with her and with us. We spent every day with these folks, and then when she died, it felt like that relationship was just gone. So that was painful. As much as I love our care team, I wish they could have been more part of that bereavement process. And then personally, after we left the hospital, I think we got one call from a social worker, and that was it. We never heard from anyone ever again. We were just on our own. And I felt like, why did the care stop? I mean, I understand that our daughter is no longer under medical care, but to me, the baby and the parents are a patient family unit. And I needed help and support, and there was just nothing. We received absolutely no follow-up, bereavement care, or anything. So that sort of hard stop of caring for us as the family of the patient was very painful too.
I have something to say about that, because I think, Daphne, you're very good at following up with families in that scenario. I am very bad, and I think it's actually nice for me to hear your thoughts, because to me, when these things happen, there's really a feeling of responsibility that we've let a family down. And it's extreme, and it's not that we don't want to engage, but it's just we feel like crap. We feel like we've failed a family, we failed a baby, and it's very hard to face our easiest solution is to get right back on the saddle, see if I can help anyone right now, because I need to feel better about myself, because having lost a patient is just so traumatizing. So it's nice to hear that this would be welcomed. Yes. And that this is something that could be just as therapeutic as all the care that was received during the NICU stay.
Absolutely. I thank you for sharing that. And I think that if you look at, you can't do anything for the patient that has died at that point, but you are still caring for the family. And by reaching out and continuing to acknowledge the loss, that is such a service to the parents and the family. So as a care provider, I think that is just the best care you can give. Everyone I know that has been bereaved in the NICU knows exactly which clinicians reached out, who came to a memorial service, who sent a card, who just had a conversation, who sat with them and listened. We all remember years and years and years later which of the members of the care team did that, because it means so much to us, and it makes us feel like our baby mattered. So I really encourage you. I know that it's hard. I know that there's so much on your plate, and you just want to care for your patients. But if you can continue that care just a little bit for us as bereaved parents, it's more deeply appreciated than you might think.
Jen said something at the end of her story, and I think this is especially true for NICU. I mean, for all NICU parents, especially during the time of COVID and with different visitation rules, that for a lot of families, very few people even meet their baby. And so I guess my question is, as clinicians, what is our responsibility, and what is the power in having, borne witness to your baby and having known your child?
Yeah, so that's personal to me. We had a primary nurse that was with us many of our days, and she was one of the few people that knew her. My husband and I, of course, were in the NICU every day, and my mother was able to travel out and met her. And that's all. No one else of my friends or family ever met my daughter, Sarah, but my primary care nurse knew everything about me, everything about her. I feel like she's family because she was physically there. She knew my daughter almost as well as anyone on this earth knew my daughter. So to me, she's family now because it's so limited who was there, as you said, to bear witness that my Sarah is a human, and she had a life, and she was on this planet, and our nurses especially spent time with her and knew her, and very, very few did. So I think that the more clinicians can see that they have like a sacred place within the family, because so few people that we care about got to know our child, but they were there, they saw them, they touched them. So that's, like I said, to me, that's a sacred role that our caregivers have in the NICU.
Appreciate that.
I want to leave it on this, if you're okay with that.
I don't think there's anything else we can say. We're so grateful for you coming and sharing Sarah with us. We know it doesn't get any easier every time you tell her story, but we can see that change is happening. And the one thing that is true throughout medical history is that groups of parents have always pushed medicine forward. So we see that happening right now.
Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you.